and to imply that we should just ignore the impact that Caitlin Clark had on this team, this league, this sport. Nah, it doesn't work that way.
The WNBA just went crazy after basketball legend Sue Bird changed her mind about Caitlin Clark.
Bird calls out ESPN host for, quote, hating on WNBA playoff ratings after Caitlin Clark's exit. You said what?
That's right. Sue Bird, who originally was a supporter of Caitlin, called out Stephen A. Smith, saying, the WNBA are doing just fine without Clark, Caitlin potentially moving to Europe, but also enjoying a nice break right now. Yet Sue believes the numbers are still on a huge scale, which is not true.
Has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing. Sure. This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring systems to the WNBA. This has been happening, and that I think is what's been such a shock for all.
That was Sue defending Caitlin, but it seems like she's had enough, as Caitlin's absence has caused uproar on social media. Fans want her back and are refusing to watch more WNBA.
Numbers with Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw. She brings in all the things. And yes, the games where she's not playing have lower viewership. But in the WNBA playoffs are still breaking records from previous WNBA years.
The facts are there. Without Caitlin, the WNBA is following a downward slope back down to reality. Every game that has been played without Caitlin, we have seen a decline in viewership. Yet Sue believes Caitlin's time away from basketball isn't going to cause any problems at all.
I don't want it to grow if it's certain people at the face. And there is still this undertone of jealousy that for some reason I cannot get around calling it anything else but that, because I don't know what else it could be. I thought it was going to get better this season, but it hasn't. There are still people who seemingly, to me, feel like they just don't want Caitlin to be a...
Rachel Demita made a great point. WNBA legends don't want the sport to grow when Caitlin is being the face. They would rather go back to square one than have to deal with the competition that Caitlin brings.
The problem, Sue Bird. I know that you gave her props and you acknowledged how phenomenal she was in terms of a draw. What Shannon Sharp and I were guilty of saying was that not enough folks were appreciating
Caitlin Clark's presence in the WNBA was nothing short of transformative. However, as soon as she exited the playoffs, it was as if the WNBA had lost its heartbeat. Now, with Europe rumors on the rise, the league could be in deep trouble. Sue Bird, a WNBA legend, initially had nothing but praise for Caitlin Clark. Bird had been an outspoken supporter of Clark, seeing her as a player who could change the game for the better. In her early statements, Sue Bird recognized that Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie. She was someone who could revolutionize women's basketball.
Moved home games to bigger arenas when Indiana came to town to accommodate more fans. I'm not finished. Attendance for the entire league is up nearly 50% this year, and Indiana leads all teams with an average attendance of 17,035, up 319% from a year ago.
For Smith, it wasn't just about one player leaving the court. It was about the WNBA losing its biggest draw. He pointed out how viewership had taken a massive hit since Clark's exit, emphasizing that the league needed to recognize just how important she was to their success. Smith's stance wasn't just a casual observation, it was a call to action. He believed that the WNBA needed to do more to elevate players like Clark and keep the momentum going, but Sue Bird wasn't having it. She publicly called out Stephen A. Smith for his comments, arguing that he was wrong to attribute the decline in playoff viewership solely to Caitlin Clark's absence. Bird countered that there were many factors at play and that the hype surrounding the playoffs wasn't dependent on one player. Bird's rebuttal to Smith's claims sparked a heated debate, with fans and analysts taking sides. On one hand, you had Stephen A. Smith, who believed that Caitlin Clark was the primary reason for the excitement surrounding the playoffs. On the other, you had Sue Bird, a legend of the game, insisting that the WNBA was bigger than any one player, even someone as impactful as Clark.
Just say the ratings aren't the same with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever now eliminated. Game 1 of the Aces Liberty matchup on Sunday drew an average of 929,000 viewers. Was down nearly 50% from last Sunday's Fever Sun contest. By the way, not only was viewership down, but attendance was.
Sue Bird didn't stop at challenging Stephen A. Smith. She doubled down on her stance, refusing to admit that Caitlin Clark's absence was the primary cause of the WNBA's viewership decline. Even as ratings plummeted after Clark's exit, Bird remained adamant that the downturn in interest wasn't all about Clark. This refusal to acknowledge the Caitlin Clark effect left many fans frustrated. After all, the numbers didn't lie. Viewership had spiked when Clark was playing, and it had dropped significantly when she was no longer on the court. Insistence that there were other reasons for the decline didn't sit well with those who had been closely following the playoffs. Fans pointed out that the excitement surrounding the games had noticeably decreased after Clark's exit, and it was hard to ignore the correlation between her departure and the drop in ratings. But despite this, Bird continued to hold her ground, refusing to give Clark the credit many believed she deserved.
This noise came by people that were sitting on this network. They tried to minimize her, said, well, you giving her all this credit. What about the women that came before her? What the women came before her, what they did cannot be taken away. That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. But there was a lot of people tried to make sure they keep Caitlin Clark in her place, because what you're doing, if you give her all this shine, you minimize what they done. We saw the ratings. We saw the merchandise sales. We saw the attendance, but y'all want to make it about.
This disconnect between Sue Bird and the fans became more apparent as the debate over Caitlin Clark's impact continued. Bird's refusal to acknowledge Clark's influence left many feeling like the WNBA's veterans were out of touch with the current state of the league. Fans who had been drawn to the WNBA because of Clark's performances were now feeling alienated by the very legends they had once admired. The fact that Bird, someone who had once been seen as a mentor figure to younger players, was now downplaying Clark's significance was troubling to many. It raised questions about whether the WNBA was ready to evolve or if it was stuck in the past, unwilling to fully embrace the next generation of stars. The WNBA's reluctance to fully recognize Caitlin Clark's impact has been one of the most baffling aspects of this entire situation. From the moment Clark entered the league, it was clear that she was different.
Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA, and she is getting paid a measly $28.
Her games drew in massive audiences, her social media presence was off the charts, and her ability to connect with fans set her apart from many of her peers. Yet, despite all of this, the WNBA seemed hesitant to fully embrace the Caitlin Clark effect. Whether it was due to internal politics, jealousy from other players, or a simple refusal to acknowledge her star power, the WNBA failed to capitalize on the wave of interest that Clark brought to the league. Instead of promoting her as the face of the WNBA, the league seemed content to let her rise on her own, without the full support of its promotional machine. This oversight would prove costly, as the league's viewership numbers began to fall apart once Clark exited the playoffs.
Don't y'all want a greater profile? Don't y'all want more notoriety? Don't y'all want more hype? I understand that it's going on still without her, now that she's out of the playoffs, because the games have been great. But the fact of the matter is, she swelled the interest in the sport.
By failing to fully recognize the Caitlin Clark effect, the WNBA missed out on an opportunity to grow its audience and solidify its place in the sports world. Instead, it now faces declining ratings, frustrated fans, and a lack of buzz around its biggest events. The league's reluctance to embrace Clark's star power has left it in a precarious position, one that may be difficult to recover from. Through it all, Stephen A. Smith has remained one of Caitlin Clark's most vocal supporters. While others have downplayed her impact or outright dismissed her contributions, Smith has consistently called out what he sees as an agenda against Clark. Smith has pointed out how the league seems to treat Clark differently than other players, whether it's through on-court targeting or a lack of off-court promotion. He has spoken about how Clark has been singled out by opponents, targeted with fouls, and overlooked when it comes to league-wide recognition.
The Clark effect is definitely real. I mean, we can all see that. However, experiencing it in person is totally different. I was at the Fever in Indiana game last night, and the amount of 22s that I saw on the way to the arena and inside the Capital One Arena might as well have just been a home game for Caitlin Clark. Not Indiana, Caitlin Clark. The thing is, that didn't surprise me. But what did surprise me was how packed the game.
As the controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark's treatment in the WNBA continues to grow, many of her fans are beginning to push for her to leave the league altogether. They argue that Clark would be better off playing in the EuroLeague, where she would likely receive more respect and better financial opportunities. In Europe, fans believe Clark's talents would be fully appreciated and she wouldn't have to deal with the constant targeting and mistreatment she faces in the WNBA. This movement among Clark's fanbase is growing louder by the day, with many calling for her to make the move sooner rather than later. They believe that the WNBA has shown its true colors and that Clark would be better off playing in a league that values her skills and contributions.
Respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to.
All right, we gotta go.
Stephen, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Wow.
Don't do that. I'm talking to you about the power that you have.
Really
You
appreciate
missed my girl, but you've missed a lot of episodes.
The financial opportunities in Europe are another major reason why fans want Caitlin Clark to consider leaving the WNBA. While the WNBA has struggled to fully capitalize on her star power, the EuroLeague could offer her a more lucrative career. In Europe, Clark would not only earn more but also gain the respect she deserves as one of the best players in women's basketball. Fans argue that in Europe, Clark wouldn't have to deal with the petty politics and jealousy that have plagued her time in the WNBA. Instead, she could focus on doing what she does best, dominating on the court and continuing to grow her brand as one of the most exciting players in the game. It is a secret that Caitlin Clark's dominance has made her a target within the WNBA. Some legends and current players, rather than embracing the increased competition, have openly expressed their desire for her to leave the league. They believe that the league would be better off without her, even if it means sacrificing viewership. These players argue that Caitlin Clark is too good, and her presence makes the league more competitive than they'd prefer. Clark's ability to elevate the level of play has made her a threat to some players, particularly those who are used to being the top stars in the league. Rather than seeing her as a welcome addition, they see her as someone who disrupts the status quo. This jealousy has led to a growing movement among some players to push Clark out of.
Be a team overseas who would love to snatch Caitlin Clark away from us and give her a crazy offer. I mean, Ice Cube was about to give her $5 million to play in less than 10 games in the Big Three. So the money is there, and if these owners are smart with it, I could definitely see more WNBA players going overseas and possibly.
As the controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark's treatment in the WNBA continues to grow, many of her fans are beginning to push for her to leave the league altogether. They argue that Clark would be better off playing in the EuroLeague, where she would likely receive more respect and better financial opportunities. In Europe, fans believe Clark's talents would be fully appreciated and she wouldn't have to deal with the constant targeting and mistreatment she faces in the WNBA. This movement among Clark's fanbase